Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I just want to start today by kind of taking everybody back 10 years. 2013 is the year I started in adult education as a teacher. And I was thinking about how different it was. And I'm not just talking about in the classroom, I'm talking about in life and the skills that we need just to get by from one day to the next. In particular, though, when I'm thinking about my classroom, and maybe if you were an educator at that time, you could kind of think about it yourself. Nobody in my program was using technology at all. Like I was the only one even using a projector. So it was very interesting to walk into that situation. But other things, though, are just day-to-day life. I don't think there was quite the expectation of being digitally literate. And the other day, I went to the dentist and they had sent me a link to my phone that they wanted me to fill out to register instead of, doing paperwork. Well, I didn't fill it out before I got there for one reason. The same thing happened to me the week before for a different doctor, and they told me I didn't need to do it in the first place. But they made me do it. And just in the process of sitting in that office, I was just kind of thinking about it. I'm like, well, I have to have a lot of skills just to do this. The first problem was I clicked on the link. It took me to Safari. Safari wasn't linked to Wi-Fi. Well, there's an issue. So I either need to know how to access Wi-Fi or I have to know how to copy and paste and go to Google and type it in. And then it continued from there because there were 5 different steps. They wanted me to type all of these things. And when you think about it, a lot of us are used to this, but a lot of us struggle with that. I don't care for that process myself, and I like technology, but I don't enjoy doing all those steps on the phone. But it's the world we live in. And so we now expect everybody to do it. And, and that's just one small example. And so this is why I think it is very important for this session today about talking about increasing our students' digital literacy skills along with our own as we go. My name is Ashley Winkle. I am now the Associate Director of the Distance Education Professional Development Center here at TCOL at Texas A&M. I am also Journeyman to Technology Coach, as well as the Integrating Technology Moderator for Links. Prior to that, though, I worked for Literacy Council of Tyler for about 7 or 8 years. I was a GED and ABE teacher. I was a technology coach, as well as a distance learning coordinator, many things. So I do come with the experience and a lot of which I want to share with you today. Tech integration was something I did from the beginning, mostly because I was amazed by what it could do. But then I spent most of my time at Literacy Council of Tyler convincing others to do the same. However, I do want to say with that things have changed just in the last few years. Obviously, the pandemic has made it this way, in that we are not just talking about integrating technology from our side, but we're also talking about building our students' digital literacy skills, which is not an easy feat for us as teachers. So that's what we're here to do today. Now that you know me, I'm going to do a quick activity. 92% of you are instructors. I'm always looking for you in particular. You're the ones I want to talk to, and distance learning, of course. Next question is, when integrating digital literacy skills into your instruction, what words come to mind? Challenging, relevant, important. These are all very good words so far. Time-consuming, stressful, afterthought. Time-consuming and stressful seem to be the biggest 2 things that some of us are saying, and I appreciate that honesty because it is true, especially if we're just getting started with it. The time-consuming part, The good part about that is once you've taken the time, you've learned your tool, you've created or shared with others or used others, it stays forever, which becomes a way of saving us time in the future. Once our students are trained, they become very confident and then they teach other students. So there's a lot of things that go into this. One more question. Rate your comfort level with integrating digital skills into lessons. Looks like most of you are moderately comfortable. We've got some that are super comfortable, and a few are not comfortable at all. That's okay. That's why we're here. And hopefully we will help you today with getting some ideas. Even if you are super uncomfortable, maybe we can come up with some ideas for just getting started to keep it simple for you and your students. So today our objectives are to utilize strategies for developing students' digital literacy skills, identify lesson ideas, implement best practices, all for integrating free digital literacy curricula into your class lessons. So a part of this is kind of talking about, there are a lot of digital literacy curricula now offered that are amazing. And two of them we're going to talk about in a minute that we have provided for you as on the state level. But we're going to talk about two others as well, because there's a lot of opportunity there. And it helps both us as teachers improve our skills along with our students. But I like to mention that it is also important when we're doing these curricula that they're very helpful for us and our students. But if you have them go through it and then they don't practice those skills, they're not going to have an opportunity to really become good at those skills, right? So it's like teaching me math. You can teach it to me, but if I'm not doing it every day, I'm not going to remember it. So that's why it's important that we're kind of doing both, providing our students with the tools that they could learn the skills even on their own, but also taking those skills and implementing them into our instruction. Digital literacy curriculum, if you didn't know, we do have the two free that we purchased. TWC purchased this year, North Star and Computer Essentials. If you didn't know that, you may want to talk to your distance learning lead. And if they don't know that, they should call our call center. So the vision behind doing this for our instructors is basically based on National Skills Coalition report in 2020 stated that middle skills jobs typically require less than a bachelor's degree while paying a living wage. But digitally intensive was requiring use of multiple technology applications. So as it is, a third of our US workers lack digital skills, and 82% of all middle skills jobs are described as digitally intensive. So I want you guys to think about what skills are needed to live, work, and just survive in our digital world. This can apply to you and your students. So just basic skills. Accessibility, Tara says. Dee says, knowing how to use the phone, tablets, and cash registers. Sending and replying emails, smartphone app skills for banking, knowing how to fill out an application, internet security, learning how to digitally sign documents. So just in the answers we're getting, it's overwhelming, right? If we just look at it, it's like, it's a lot. Sometimes it's basic skills, but then we're expected to know all of these other things. I think a lot about the remote instructors in general and how challenging that is. And not just the basics. It's like, what is your student using? What kind of phone are they using? What do you know about that kind of phone? Even if it's a smartphone, is it an iPhone? Is it an Android phone? And which one are you proficient at? You don't know. So you can't always help those students, right? Same thing with computers. Is it a tablet? Is it an iPad? Is it a laptop? What kind of laptop? And it goes on. And, I'm not trying to keep plugging the call center, but I am at the same time, because we do have this huge advantage over pretty much the rest of the country where we have a call center that can help you with that, because it's a lot to expect from you. And and it's a lot to expect from everybody. So we see all of these skills that are needed out there, and it's kind of now become a little bit of our responsibility to help our students develop those skills. So skills for a digital world, medical records, children's schools, driver's license, job application, voter registration. Everything now is just assumed to be online. So the first thing we're going to look at is strategies for integrating digital literacy curriculum into your instruction. A lot of this might be up to your DL lead or your program director, but one idea would be to use one curriculum for synchronous and one for asynchronous. So what do I mean by that? Use one curriculum for synchronous classes for direct hours. So for an example, maybe you are able to use North Star Digital Literacy at your program. So either in a computer lab, maybe during your class, whatever it may be, but it's with your students for direct hours. And then maybe if for those students that are able to, they could use the other curriculum. In this case, it would be essential education for proxy hours. So that way we avoid double dipping or reteaching, and we're making it easier for the people who are entering data. I do know that these curriculum are probably not the greatest for students working on their own until they become a little bit more comfortable with it, because we're working on digital literacy skills. A lot of the students don't have computers, which, we're going to talk a little bit about. Continuing with our digital literacy curriculum and using both or either one of them, or any of them really, student needs. If you find one that works well for an individual student, I would definitely go with that, because we want to meet the needs of our students. That's the nice thing about having different options out there, is sometimes students just don't do well with a certain one. So it's nice to have an opportunity to maybe put them on something else that might be either simpler for them or something more comfortable for them. An example of that would be Computer Essentials is through Essential Ed. Maybe your program already uses Essential Ed, so your students may already know that platform, and that might be just better for them. Student training. Always important if you're going to use digital literacy curriculum, make sure the students have been sufficiently trained on the curriculum so that they are clear on such items as whether to choose the in-class option or out-of-class option when they're out of class versus in class. Other things, though, just navigating it, be there with them, literally hold their hand, be in the class with them, let them get online with you. Sometimes they just might need your presence there just for the security of it before you just send them out on their own. And then start integrating digital literacy skills into your lessons. Integrate the skills students learn from their digital literacy curriculum into your lessons. So what do I mean by that? Well, maybe what I will do is have my students work on a Word document lesson, digital literacy curriculum lesson. But then what I'm going to do is at some point in my lesson, I'm going to have them create a Word document based on my lesson. So it might even be at the end of your class, you do a reflection. But then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue incorporating those skills into future lesson. It becomes consistency, it becomes routine, and they become more proficient with that skill. Flipped classroom situations. So in a flipped classroom situation, maybe I would assign lessons to my students, digital literacy lessons as pre-work. So maybe I assign them, I'm going to use Microsoft Word again, the North Star digital literacy lessons so that they can become familiar with the skills that they will need during the next synchronous lesson. So they can at least be exposed to it first on their own, and then they can come to class and we can actually get that real practice in during class, during part one of our activities. Now, I am very much aware that in some cases, students may need to go to the computer lab or library. And you may need to help students find a way to complete this before class, such as inviting them to come in early if you have a computer or laptop they can use. Similarly, you could assign digital literacy lessons as homework. In this case, students just need to continue practicing these skills. So they may need, again, to go to a computer lab or library or come in early to complete the activity. But you might do it instead of the flipped classroom, introduce something to them during class, and then have them do more practice on one of the curriculums offered. Tiffany says, another example, maybe writing the essay on a Word document that would help with a GED student when taking the GED RLA. Typing, copy, edit, paste, etc. Absolutely. And even if you don't do Word, you could also do Google, whichever one is best for your program. I prefer Google because everything in the cloud was better for my environment and for my students. And I will mention that I feel like these days we have to know Google and Word. It's like becoming an expectation. But, we can't do everything, right? So if you can teach them one or the other, they can adapt skills from one and apply them to the other as they are encountered with that. So now we're going to talk about effective practices for integrating digital literacy skills into your instruction. First one we're going to look at would be building those basic literacy skills. If possible, practice the basic daily or at least weekly as soon as students come to class. If your class or students do not have access to computers, you can create a homework assignment for students to find free computer access, for example, at a local library. There are different things you can do, but you can dedicate 30 minutes of class to practicing digital literacy skills. In doing that, I know that is kind of sometimes a big ask. For example, I had 2 days a week, 3 hours a day. It's not a lot of time for me to be teaching 4 subjects and also incorporating digital literacy skills. You have to make that decision how you want to do that. You may give them 30 minutes at the beginning of class. For me, that would work out well because that's when students were kind of rolling in. It doesn't help all of them that come in late, but they were coming off of work and things like that. You could also just build the skills into your lessons as you go, and then provide time before or after class for additional practice if you are in an environment that allows you to do that. Again, what I was saying is if your class or students do not have access to computers, let's start giving them some ideas. These skills are important. Most of my students tended to know those cell phones way better than I do. To this day, I do not consider myself cell phone proficient. I do consider myself computer proficient. It's my generation. But my students knew those cell phones so well, but when it came to computers, not so much. And those skills do matter. I know a lot of things are being moved to cell phones, but we still need the computers. So a homework assignment, like I mentioned, have them find some free computer access and then come back to class and share it with the class. Or do a community-based project, find a local help to support digital literacy skills. Windows is a great place to start with teaching your students about computers. Teach students how to utilize Windows to their benefit. One thing that I always did in my classes is I would teach them how to split their screens. So in doing this, I will also admit to you that I did have a computer lab that had pretty nice sized screens. I was very fortunate in this. And I used it to my advantage. So I would have the students learn how to split a screen so that students could read material on the left side, and on the right side, they could enter their answers. I use this with a lot of digital lessons, but you could do your research on the left and you could do your entering your answers on the right. This became a big benefit. It also gave the students a lot of pride because they tended to know how to use this skill, and some of my teachers did not. So their confidence was built because they would share it with other people. And it's just a good skill to have, for future things they might be doing. Another fun idea would be teach them shortcuts, make digital literacy fun. Have a hotkey of the week activity each week. I do this in my distance learning leads meetings each month. I do a hotkey of the month just because there's so many out there. And the thing is, once you learn them, life-changing. But there's so many of them that, we can't learn them all, but make it fun or have them come up, find some of their own. But either way, have students maybe find their own and maybe they can do a short key of the month for you. It's just something to make it fun. Internet. Utilize the internet every opportunity that you can. If a student has a question, and I know how they are, they're like, you're the teacher, you should know everything. Well, we don't, but also they are going to be more likely to remember if they are the ones finding the information. Google it. Not only is this good for them to learn, but this is good for them in everyday life to look things up to help their kids. If they ask what a word means, model how to use an online learner's dictionary, such as vocabulary.com is amazing. That's my favorite one. But that's also a great app that they can download and use for vocabulary practice because they have all sorts of fun activities and they're a little bit game-based as well. Then start asking them to look up words whenever a student asks about a word. Another idea would be have a brainstorming activity and let them use the internet to get some ideas to get that brainstorming going. Integrate the internet into your lessons using assessment games. I think a lot of us are doing this now. Play Kahoot, especially if you've given heavy material a lot of times. Even in my professional development, I just gave you a whole bunch of heavy definitions. I will break it up with a Kahoot to make it a little bit more fun and engaging, fun assessment tool. Blooket is another option if you're not familiar. It's not as popular as Kahoot, but from what I've heard from K-12, if you've ever had Kahoot and it drops in your class on their phones, the students get mad, right? Because they don't like to lose. But with Look It, I guess it works better in the classroom. So it's very similar to Kahoot. Personally, I think it's a little easier to use also. Another alternative a lot of us know about is Quizzes. Another amazing one. It has a lot of different options as well, more individualized. Also utilize formative assessment tools. Edpuzzle has interactive videos. It allows, for you to add questions throughout, or you can stop for discussion, different things like that. So the student is actually engaged in the video. Mentimeter and Slido, it's a great interactive tool to use. I choose one or the other for different purposes. They both have free versions. I would utilize them. Padlet, of course, is great for collaboration as well. Google Forms, always great. The great thing about Google Forms is it's so easy to make. It's so easy to distribute, but more importantly, it is a great opportunity for them to learn skills that they might need on a job application. So use different features of the questions as you go, because you can do drop-down box, you can do check the ones that apply, you can do open answer. So all sorts of different opportunities. And then another one of my personal favorites, of course, is Plickers. This is a low-tech tool. The students are given codes that they hold on to, physical codes, and the teacher has a cell phone that she uses to assess their answers. Most of these things are also available on Tech and Tells if you ever want to explore them. And if you ever have questions about any of them, or you want to get started or just practice with them, you can also call this call center for that. Integrating the internet into your lessons, even if you do not have computers, let students use any device they have access to research content. Utilize EdTech tools for games, polling, collaboration, formative assessment. Now, when I'm saying that, that doesn't mean you have to make your entire lesson nonstop EdTech tools, because A, that would be ridiculous and not a very good lesson, but also you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to wear yourself out, and you're also going to stress and wear out your students. So we don't want to do that. I would keep it simple, especially in the beginning. Don't use a ton of tools. If you're brand new to this, use one, make it easy. Workforce readiness. So important. I think we as educators know contextualization, especially in this day and age, especially with our adult learners, is so, so, so important. So how about incorporate email writing into a math or writing lesson? I think you guys know as well as I do that email is not their thing. They don't even check it, for crying out loud. And I know some of you know what I'm talking about. You open their Gmail and they've got 10,000 unread messages. They don't check their email. They don't know how to write an email, but guess who expects them sometimes to know how to write an email, when they go to work? Do they train you on how to write an email when you start a position? I don't think so. Even when email first came out, they weren't training on that. So it's expected. So why not incorporate it into your lesson ideas? Email a boss or a spouse about a math, data, or a budget you've been working on during class. Another idea might be email a child's teacher about what you or your child needs to bring to the next class or field trip for vocabulary and writing practice. What I would do is have them email you for the practice. You can help make the edits, send it back to them, and then they can fix the edits and actually use that email to forward to whoever they're sending it to. These are great opportunities. You're getting so many different options. I would also probably encourage teaching them how to attach an item. I mean, that is a skill that, quite frankly, it's now an old skill for a lot of us, because this is one of the first things we learned, but it's kind of a complicated process when you really think about it. And so it's a great thing for students to learn. Next idea, integrate email writing into either a career search or a social studies lesson. So perhaps you could email a company about a job you would like to have during a career search lesson, or email your state representative about a concern you have regarding a current issue that arises during a social studies class. Create documents, whether it is Microsoft or Google, you choose, have them do it. Essay writing, you can do collaboration activities where you have two students working on the same document. I literally had two students working on an extended response, helping each other out, sitting next to each other at the same time, discussing proper usage and discussing the arguments and things like that. And it seemed to help them with the actual essay. In my AB class, we did a lot of grammar and punctuation practice. So put them on an actual Google document or Microsoft document and have them. Not only are you getting that grammar and punctuation and they're learning a tool, but what other skill are they learning? Keyboarding, right? And I don't know, I could probably count on one hand how many of my students in 7 years actually knew how to type. You could do student reflections, or perhaps you could even do daily journals. Construct slide decks during classes. So again, whether it's a PowerPoint or a Google slide, personally, I think I would start with a Google slide for the simplicity if I had options. But either way, very important skill to have. You go to college, they don't teach you that. They kind of expect you to do it. When I started my master's degree, it had been 14 years since I'd gotten my bachelor's degree, and some things had changed. For instance, there was no internet when I got my bachelor's degree. And all of a sudden there was, and the first thing I was asked to do was make a PowerPoint. I didn't have a clue how to make a PowerPoint. I had to go learn that skill. Well, that wasn't so hard for me, but for our students, that might be very challenging. So we can integrate that into our instruction. We can do research projects, create a class slide deck book where everybody contributes to a research project. I'm going to give you a more specific example of that shortly. You can do collaboration activities where, either everybody's working on it, or you can have group work where they're all working on the same activity. You can do presentations and just projects. There's so many opportunities with slide decks, and it's also a great opportunity for creativity. Have them create spreadsheets and online forms. Spreadsheets are my weakest area, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's a good example, though, because I've done countless tutorials over the years, but unless I'm actually making those formulas myself on a daily basis or even weekly basis, I'm probably not going to be as proficient as somebody who does more things with data than I am. So at least expose them. You can have them work on budgeting or shopping, online applications, digital citizenship, or you could have your students create a class resource sheet as they find tools they like or anything else, good websites to practice. They could create their own resource sheet. And we're going to do an activity. This is a connect, extend, and challenge. My first question for you: consider the best practices and recommendations just presented to you. How do they connect to what you already know or what you're already doing as far as teaching goes? All right, one said, I have my students write about something they know. I give them a prompt and they have to write about it. I use Essential Ed. Familiar with many of these resources, putting into practice for distance learners with different devices and knowledge skills is difficult for the reasons you have already mentioned: access, time to spend, needs of learner, motivation, etc. I love Kahoots and use it regularly. Students now use it with ease, but the first few times were challenging. Absolutely. We also have big internet issues, and it creates a real challenge. Yeah, so maybe try Blooket, see if that helps. I teach the students how to create Google Docs for RLA extended response. Perfect. Dabbling with quizzes and bands. Have also introduced USA Learns and online ventures. Perfect. Incorporating hands-on digital skills is difficult in my situation because I do not have access to a computer lab or have computers for them to use. We do discuss the importance of digital literacy, and I demonstrate whole group. We do use Kahoot, etc., with their cell phones. At every session I attend, I write down lots of resources. Transferring that to practical application with EL students is the issue for us. I'm glad you brought that up because we have some wonderful ideas for that today. That is a huge challenge. I know it from my own ESL teachers' experiences. I couldn't get them to use technology, especially with the low-tech, low ESL learners. So we've got some options for that now. I use quizzes. Students like it. Students can get familiar with searching for information online. Somebody said, I love using a piece of technology that I can easily integrate into a presentation or a lesson. For example, like Wakelet, it's easy because everything for the participant is on one Wakelet collection, and you just send one link instead of 20 links. My students use Quill, but I give them the option of either logging into the computer or using their phone, both allowing typing practice and both present and new challenges. Absolutely. Giving them options is always a good idea anyway as adults. I use Kahoot and sometimes send homework for them on band. And I love the idea of making presentations and doing projects that you mentioned. So I will do it. And I'm going to give you more examples of that. And you're also going to get resources at the end of the session today with actual lesson plans that I have done with the resources. So hopefully you'll find something you can use. All right, next question. After reviewing the information presented to you so far, what challenges or puzzles emerge for you? No computer lab, few students with proper technology and skills, I would add. Class size, resources, students felt need to learn and apply. I don't know how to use many of those games mentioned. Pick one, especially in the beginning. If you don't know how to use a bunch, that's okay. Try to find one, and we can always help you at the call center also with finding the easiest one to get started. Spent too many hours to learn how to work with Kahoot. I love to use quizzes, Edpuzzle, and Blooket, but I don't know how to use them. Being at a host school, we don't have computer access as well as their internet has been down all school year. Students are using their data or connecting to my hotspot. Yeah, that is a huge challenge. Trying to introduce one tool a week session, sending it via email, or students not present in distance class. A big need for buy-in by students and teachers. Trying to introduce a tool a week session, sending it via email for students not present in distance class. Okay. Yeah, all good answers on that. And we can add these resources we discuss to our handout at the end. And final question, what new ideas did you get that broadened your thinking or extended it in different directions? Adding more fun game activities we can use with phones and the technology we have available. New games to try, ways to provide homework options, group projects and presentations, shortcut or hotkey of the week that could extend a digital practice tool a week or something else. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Typing.com, vocabulary.com, Quill, using learner-friendly online assessment games that keep students engaged. Community-based projects that incorporate digital literacy, integrate the internet into your lessons. Great answers. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. So now we're going to really talk about integrating those digital literacy skills into our instruction. So here's some warm-up ideas for, using and discussing the digital literacy curriculum with our students. So always recommend model navigating the curriculum. Again, like we discussed earlier, show in and out of class options. This idea I wish I had done when I was a teacher. Design a create and remember password activity. I don't know how many people have problems with their students' password. It's so challenging too, because we want them to have safe passwords as well, and assign lessons to them. These are things they can be doing or that you can be doing with them, or they can just be doing the lessons themselves. So what we're going to be looking at today is 4 different lessons, and all of them are going to be following the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate the 5 E's lesson model. So the first one we have is connecting to the internet. This is an ESL/ABE lesson. So based on some of the feedback I've gotten from you guys today, I think you're going to probably be pretty happy about this. This lesson comes from Dr. Glenda Rose, who created an amazing curriculum that you can access on our website. But this is from the Digital Access and Resiliency in Texas, DART curriculum. Before I get into the lesson, if you are not familiar with this is 100% free. Glenda developed this with the specific audience being low-level ESL, low-tech students. So for those of you who get stressed out about the low-tech students and not integrating this, use these lessons. They are beautiful. She put her heart and soul into them. So this one comes directly from her. Again, this is going to be on your resources sheet at the end, but let's look at the lesson itself. So on this one, I would, if I was the teacher, I would start my warm-up with them practicing on typing.com. And then I would do my engage section where I would discuss objectives and ask why they need the internet. In my explore section, I would have students learn about internet from a handout that has also been provided for me and a PowerPoint. Then the teacher would model using the internet, using Wi-Fi, etc. I would probably show them on your phone as well as on a computer. You elaborate then with students complete a handout about wireless connections, etc. And then finally, your evaluate section, your students demonstrate learning by showing you they can sign out of a computer, check the Wi-Fi, and log into the computer. I am going to mention her lessons themselves that she created start with paper, like I said before, so that you're not scaring the students with a computer right off the bat. She developed these in a situation where Tyson Plant asked her to help because their workers were so intimidated by the computers that they would just not even, they would freak out every time they bring them to them. So they had to start on paper to get them exposed to it and used to the idea of it before just jumping into it. So let's look at what this lesson that I just showed you does. Connecting to the internet, tech and skill integration. So the 5Es section that targets digital literacy, the entire lesson teaches digital literacy, but the evaluation section is where students are actually demonstrating the skill. The digital literacy skill being taught, keyboarding, internet use, and basic computer skills. The literacy skills being taught, vocabulary. Vocabulary is a great way with ESL students to start getting them familiar with digital literacy. We also have opportunity for oral communication, listening, and letter identification. The lesson activities with the digital literacy is students demonstrate they know how to turn a computer off and on and connect to the Wi-Fi. So now we're going to look at another one. So this was budgeting, career prep, and math lesson. So in this one, I adapted this from Google Applied Digital Skills lesson. And this is another one that is 100% free. You do have to have a Google account, but if you have never checked these out, I really recommend it. But let's look at the lesson itself. So in this one, I had students work on one of the digital literacy curriculums. This time, I probably would have exposed them to a spreadsheet lesson, at least to get them somewhat exposed to the idea of a spreadsheet. And then I would engage them, do a discussion activity about what is our everyday wants versus our needs. From there, I take the students to the Texas Reality Check assessment, which is an amazing website. If you aren't familiar with it, it's pretty awesome because it basically kind of surveys the students and they have to talk about their real life spending habits. And they realize, hey, am I actually making enough money to afford the way that I live? My explain and elaborate sections, I literally used the Google Applied Digital Skills lesson that was already provided for me. It does such a beautiful job of teaching digital literacy skills. And then my evaluate, I use a Google form where students take a brief quiz about the lesson, and then they complete an exit ticket using that Google form. So now to summarize what we just did, in this one, the 5Es section, really, the digital literacy skills came in with the explain and elaborate sections. The skills they learned were Excel spreadsheets, data entry, and keyboarding. Literacy skills learned math, reading, and research. So they learned math, they learned the spreadsheet as well, but they also had an opportunity to research because the first thing Google had them do is go to the internet and they had to research, I think it was 3 to 5 different cell phones to see and compare prices and features and things like that. So they create a spreadsheet for that during the Google session. And then at the end of it, they create their own spreadsheet, creating a budget. So this is a real life thing that they could actually use in everyday life. The lesson activity that focused was the Google Applied Digital Skills lesson where students worked on the long-term spending decisions. So they were able to create a budget and look at long-term spending. Great skills in and out of the classroom. So not only are we teaching them a little bit about math, we're teaching them about Excel and spreadsheets, and we're also helping them learn this everyday skill that they can use in their life. Okay. So now what we're going to do, you're going to either go explore the DART curriculum or the Google Applied Digital Literacy curriculum. When you go to these links, let me just show you what you're going to be looking at. You should see a Google Documents. They both look exactly the same. So in this case, you go to the DART curriculum. I provided the link there. You're going to choose one lesson to explore. So both of them are exactly the same. Just pick one or the other. You don't have to do both. So I hope you guys found something kind of cool today that you found on one of these. These are both two amazing resources. I am going to continue. We're going to look at two more lessons. The first lesson is going to be a Pearl Harbor social studies / reading lesson. So in this lesson, we have students work on the digital literacy curriculum about creating slide decks this time. We start the lesson with a KWL chart. So we discuss, what do they know about Pearl Harbor and what do they want to know? And of course, we go back to it at the end about what they learned. The explore section, the students do a gallery walk. So this time I had printed off images from Pearl Harbor and had the students walk around, review the images, and answer questions about what they thought was happening in the images. Students then read and answered questions on a wonderful website called Common Lit. Common Lit is a great resource that you can do digitally or you can print them off, and they have the levels of readings for you, and they're perfect for adult ed. From there, we went on to Elaborate, where students were assigned groups. And so basically how this worked is I found an article in Pearl Harbor. This was a higher level article. This was a higher level GED class. And I printed it off. It was 2 pages long. It came from history.com. And what I did is I broke out 4 sections, and students in their groups were assigned each section. From there, what they did is they pulled out the main ideas, and they were to summarize what they learned, and they put them, everybody contributed to one slide deck. So at the end, after they had done the research and contributed to the slide deck, we had one beautiful slide deck that basically allowed us to present on the article they read. Students then presented their sections, and then at the end of our activity, we went back to the KWL chart where they shared what they learned. This was probably one of my top 5 lessons. It was just great to see them collaborate, using creativity skills, learning, researching, so many different things. So in this, to summarize, this was a very digital lesson. So a lot of my lessons ended up being very digital because my students had the skills to do that. They were trained. So sometimes you might just want to pick and choose different ways of doing parts of these lessons if you don't feel comfortable with everything. This doesn't have to be done on a Google slide deck. This has also been done with, flip chart paper, assigned to students section of the article, and they can do it on flip chart paper and summarize their ideas as well. It depends on your student's level, of course. So in this lesson, though, every section had something digital literacy. The digital literacy skills learned were creating slide decks, keyboarding, Google, and internet usage. In addition, the literacy skills they acquired reading, writing, and research. Lesson integration activity was all of them in this case. Okay, the final one we're going to look at is punctuation and grammar in social media lesson. So this one was pretty fun. This time what I would do is I would work on digital literacy curriculum for Word or Google document digital lesson first. I then would engage the students by sharing different punctuation marks on the board. Ask the students what is the meaning, how would they use them in writing, get them thinking about it. From there, I would hand out a punctuation infographic that discusses the purpose of each symbol. That way they can kind of use it as they are doing the activity as a little bit of a cheat sheet. Then we have a social media slip-ups handout. All of this is provided for you if you want to look at the lesson. But basically, I would hand it out to them. On the overhead projector, I would model editing the slip-ups and discuss the importance of punctuation in social media. So it's kind of fun because it's actually about social media. These are already created for you. The next part would be elaborate. Students have an opportunity to edit celebrity tweets in pairs. So that's kind of fun. It's a little outdated now, I'm sure, but still serves the purpose. So these were actual celebrity tweets that were taken, and they're able to look at them, identify errors, and rewrite them for proper grammar. And then evaluate. Students then complete a punctuation and grammar and social media assignment where they create a Google document and they go out and find their own social media slip-ups. That could either be on social media if they don't use it. Some of my students didn't use social media. So when in doubt, go to YouTube and look at the comments. You're going to find something there, but they bring it back. You could do that in different ways. They could copy and paste, or they could just take screenshots of it and upload the screenshots to the Google document. That is adding another skill, showing them how to insert an image onto a document. So either way, fun activity. Like I said, you might want to update it with more current social media posts. I don't know if there's a newer version of this. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago, I would imagine. Summarizing that one, in this one, where the digital literacy skill took place was in our elaborate section. Digital literacy skill they learned was evaluating social media and document creation. This is a great opportunity for discussion about social media and posting on social media. So, really emphasizing, digital citizenship. What is appropriate? Because, punctuation does matter. And even though a lot of people don't realize it, the meaning changes completely without it sometimes. Literacy skills learn reading, writing, evaluating, and research. And lesson activity was creating the actual Google document. All right, we're going to do a breakout room activity. The activity is going to be that you assigned your students an Internet Basics lesson from their digital literacy curriculum. So what you've done is you've basically told your students, hey, I want you to do the Internet Basics lesson, and it could be from whatever curriculum. So what I want you to do is discuss how each of you would integrate that digital literacy skill into one of your lessons. So in other words, how would you use the internet in one of your lessons? And how could you continue using the internet in future lessons? Before we end today, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you try anything or you have any questions about anything you learned today in this session or any session you ever attend and you see a cool tool, consider calling the Distance Education Call Center. We are here for support. So if you see an ed tech tool, you want to start using it, we are here to help. Need a team intro to the call center, request a roadshow, we will come and present for you. Need call center promo materials, request them, they're free, we'll send them to you. Or if you just need assistance, please call our call center. And with that, I hope that you were able to learn and take something with you. And then, of course, just so that you can see what we have on the handout today, this is a Wakelet. We have the Dart clip. These are our activities we did today, other resources for you to use. I also included all lesson plans and, of course, TCall resources as well. So feel free to take that with you. Feel free to reach out to us for any help that you need in the future. So I hope everybody has a good week, and thank you for joining us today.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCall continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.